Welcome to Fast Tracking the Day of God. This podcast is for those eager to seriously engage with God's invitation to collaborate with Him. This collaboration isn't merely an option. It's a foundational partnership utterly integral to our restoration and the healing of a broken world. Through this collaboration, we will also fulfill the final prophecy, sharing the eternal gospel with the world, a message largely unknown to most people today. As previously shown, God seeks to restore the trusting and loving relationship that existed between Him and humanity before Genesis 3. During the Exodus, the King of the universe revealed Himself, desiring to be known. Understanding God is linked to receiving His love and comprehending His true nature, which prevents misunderstanding. This leads to gratitude, love, and admiration. God's love was evident in how He drew His people into a profound, exclusive, and binding covenant with Him at Sinai. They committed their loyalty and obedience to Him as their divine King. This strongly resembles the spiritual meaning of a marriage or betrothal. They were joining the light to become light themselves. Throughout the Bible, God often speaks powerfully. However, we see that most of the time, He prefers to speak gently. When He speaks loudly, we're too quick to promise, everything the Lord has said, we will do. But you see what happened when He stopped speaking loudly. What were they doing just 40 days later? Drunkenly dancing around a golden calf. Obedience that comes from fear doesn't last long, and it can even make us resent the one asking for our obedience. The quality of obedience given to someone we're afraid of isn't very good. It can even cause frustration, erode love and respect, and turn us into rebels. Reading God's instructions was like a wedding ceremony where people say their marriage vows. By agreeing 3 times to follow everything the Lord said, they were entering into this covenant. God would be their God, and they would be His faithful, trusting people. Both the Sabbath and marriage, which were established at creation, are about relationships. The Sabbath focuses on our connection with God, while marriage is about the relationship between people. The Sabbath is also a sign between God and us that He is who sanctifies us. It's like a badge of honor, and in advance, a small preview, a delicious taste of what living with God for eternity will be. Like the Israelites, we might agree to live by God's design, God's rules, but if we don't realize our natural tendency to do wrong, all those promises will just be wishful thinking. We only begin to enjoy doing God's will when we admit we need His power and allow Him to work within us. For the Israelites, entering into God's covenant was represented by their faith, their trust in the forthcoming sacrifice of God's Lamb. For us, it means embracing Jesus' love and placing our complete, unrestricted trust in Him. God's intention to distribute leadership was evident from the moment Jethro advised Moses to delegate authority, leading to the selection of 70 leaders. God did not want Moses to rule Israel as a pharaoh. When God invited these 74 individuals to a covenantal meal, a banquet, they experienced profound intimacy with Him. Unfortunately, despite this deep experience, some were not transformed or converted by their participation. This serves as a crucial lesson for us. We may have experienced God in our lives, but unless we allow the Spirit to complete His work within us, we will not achieve our ultimate goal. That's where joining the Lord's mission makes a big difference. As we become channels of blessings, selfishness is displaced, and we reflect the caring character of our God. In the book of Exodus, 3 times the Israelites declared that they were to do whatever God said. God, who is aware of all potential outcomes, did not use His foreknowledge against them, even though He knew what would transpire 40 days later. This is because humans always retain the power of choice. God grants us freedom. When our obedience stems from our trust in God, not only has eternal weight, but also produces shalom, peace. Believing what God says is up to us. Knowing God allows us to receive His love, the love of the truth, and respond positively to all the evidence He graciously offers us. Then, as we trust Jesus, we allow Him to replace our defective operating system with what the Bible describes as a new spirit Ezekiel 36:26-28. How do we know we got this spiritual upgrade? When we start noticing that our thoughts, our desires, and priorities are in sync with God's heart. In other words, if we want to have power to do what God says, all we have to do is to accept His offer of giving us a new spirit. Notice that in Exodus 25, verse 8, God did not say, "And they shall make me a sanctuary, so that I may dwell in it." Instead, the verse states that God will dwell among them. While God is invisible, He is not remote. The idea that God is not restricted to any specific location is revolutionary for this time in history. It also shows that the tabernacle is not for Him, but for them. Though God can be found everywhere, there are certain settings in which it is easier for us to encounter Him. Just as God invited free will offerings to build the sanctuary, we too are called to freely collaborate with Him in building His kingdom. Our service should stem from love, thankfulness, and trust rather than mere obligation. By fully trusting God and allowing Him to restore His image within us, we can joyfully offer ourselves as living sacrifices. We produce this podcast series to invite you to participate in the most efficient, far-reaching endeavor to communicate, to proclaim the goodness of God with the world. Send us an email to indestructiblekindness@gmail.com. We have the tools you need to share the goodness of God 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Bezalel was chosen by God to be the chief artisan in charge of the sanctuary project. His name means "in the shadow of God." It reminds us to maintain proper perspective. Our greatest talents are divine gifts meant for serving others and glorifying God's name in the process. Artists, like all individuals, must clearly recognize that every skill and ability we possess comes from God. Art and beauty are potent tools given to us for this purpose. God wants to fill us with His new spirit. That's the only way out of this labyrinth we call life, but that without God, it only ends in death. Pure entropy. God rescued His people from Egyptian control, freed them, led them through the desert to Himself at Mount Sinai, and established His loving agreement with them. Exodus 19:3-6, Deuteronomy 7:9-12, Nehemiah 9:32. His kindness and care for them were astonishing. In a powerful display of His greatness at Sinai, He spoke the 10 promises, Exodus 20, and explained them in more detail in the Covenant Code, also known as rulings or misbatim. Now, God confirms this agreement with Israel in an important ceremony involving animal sacrifice, which, because foreshadows Christ's sacrifice, is sealed with blood. Similarly, God did everything to assure our salvation, to guarantee that the chains of death were completely broken. However, He cannot do what only we can do. He cannot force us to accept His salvation. That's up to us. If the devil persuades us, if we believe his lies, and think that we can prepare for eternity without joining Jesus' forces, he wins, you lose, and God hurts. The choice is yours.